Hello, good morning, everybody. My name is Todd Nilson. I'm part of the community team with Engineering Unleashed, and I'm excited to welcome you to the second of our jam sessions. Today, we're going to be talking about how to combine diversity, equity, and inclusion into entrepreneurial mindset in the classroom instruction for engineering students. So I'm really happy that our facilitator is with us here today. Her name is Deb Grzybowski, and she's professor of practice in the Department of Engineering Education at Ohio State University. Welcome, Deb. So nice to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you. Glad to be here.
And now we have a couple of guests with us here today too, who come in from the community. Really glad you guys could make it. Katie, Gail, do you want to briefly introduce yourselves as well?
Sure. I'm an engineering assistant professor at Rowan College of South Jersey, which is a county college, but I also am a adjunct at Rowan University. So I train the first and second year students, and then they transfer over to the university after their 2-year degree.
Wonderful.
Hi, I'm Katie. I teach at Rowan University. I also teach the same class as Gail, but at Rowan. And I'm a senior lecturer there because I got a promotion this year. Yay.
Awesome.
Congratulations.
Awesome.
Thanks.
And I just saw join us Stephanie Gillespie. Stephanie, welcome. Great to see you.
Hello, welcome everyone.
Hi, Stephanie.
We are recording this session, so I hope that's okay. Okay.
I won't say anything that I don't want recorded. We're good.
Wonderful. We're just going to have it for playback within the community later on, but I just wanted to give you a heads up on that. Stephanie, we just did some quick introductions. You want to just introduce yourself quickly?
Sure. My name is Stephanie Gillespie. I serve as the Associate Dean for the Tagliatelle College of Engineering at the University of New Haven. My background is electrical engineering, specifically speech acoustics. And I typically teach first-year courses now alongside my administrative role. DEI is a very important initiative for our College of Engineering as a whole, and I've sort of been the one spearheading and leading a lot of those efforts. We've also done some course integration as well, so it's always exciting to see what else we might be able to do. I've been a ComCat for the last few cycles, and I've been with Engineering Unleashed now for about 4 years.
Fantastic. And if any of you who are watching this on the replay wonder what a ComCat is, it is a community catalyst, affectionately known as ComCats. It is a program for basically being an ambassador to the community and helping to increase involvement and participation. If this is something you're interested in doing, please reach out to myself, Michael, or Becky, and we'd be happy to tell you a little bit more about it.
It's amazing. You should do it.
You learn so much.
So again, Deb, thank you for this. Just a reminder to everybody, this is an open jam session. So even though Deb is bringing cards and discussion points and ideas to the table here, our hope of this is going to be open and collaborative, and that as you have things that you want to ask about or talk about, I don't think we're standing on ceremony here. This is just kind of open, free-for-all conversation. Hopefully that we all further and deepen our ideas about DEI and EM in the classroom going forward. So with that, Deb, I'll turn things over to you.
Thank you so much. And if you guys don't mind, I actually am going to start with a little discussion about assessment, because I feel like anytime you're going to create any new curriculum, the place you should start is with your learning objectives, right? And we're all talking about EM. And so if we're looking at EM learning objectives, you know, you might think, all right, so I'm implementing these new activities in my class that I think is going to generate curiosity, but how do I actually measure this? What do I do with that, right? And so I am going to share screen. And can you see this EM learning outcomes and direct assessment rubrics? Great. Okay, perfect. Thank you. So Ohio State has done a lot of work with looking at learning outcomes and assessment. And so this first piece that they did in this work was looking at, you know, that there's a lot of different flavors of EMLOs that different universities have come up with. And I'm not going to go over all the data on that, but they actually have a paper here that you can link to about this comparing EM course learning objectives. And based on what they learned and student assessment, they came up with a set of 14 learning objectives. And so with these learning objectives, they created 3 different levels for each one. And then they made rubrics to assess each of those levels. So I don't know if you've seen this before, but this is where I always start. So curiosity, connections, creating value. There's 14 learning objectives. And if you download the files, you can look at the student perceptions of what they learned in EM or what was important to them. But what I think is really important are these 2 documents, which I've already downloaded. So I'm going to quick pop up this. So these are the 3 different pieces to demonstrate curiosity: engage in structured group inquiry, develop a systematic plan to identify and close gaps, formulate questions and that solicit new knowledge, and so on. It goes all the way through all 14 of these. And then you think, okay, so great. How do I assess that? What does that mean? Well, look at this. This is what I love. So demonstrate curiosity. You've got ABC and inadequate, developing, attended group inquiry sessions, but didn't engage in the process, emerging, engaged in structured group inquiry, but questions didn't facilitate growth and learning, and accomplished. So I love that I can come to this, and it's not that you're going to be using all 14 of these, right? You may be just using one of them, but I think it's great to just pull out the pieces that you are interested in, that you're implementing in your course, right? So any questions about this, or have you guys seen this before?
I had seen their EKSOs. I'm not sure at where those are with respect to this. I had not seen this actual rubric. So this is a nice resource that I'm going to make sure we share with our faculty. Thank you.
Great, thanks. Good. I know there are over 3,000 cards. There's, it's kind of hard to go through and see everything that's out there. So, okay, great. Then the next thing I want to share is, right, so we're mainly going to talk about DEI information. Oh, and I forgot, if you are into more assessment, not just the assessment of the specific course content, but if you want to find in general whether or not you did make a change in curiosity or connections, this document, which you can find on a card right here. Yeah, plug for my own card, sorry. Shameless plug, right? This was done a year ago, so there may be some new assessment instruments out there, but this is a collection of instruments that are available, and each instrument tells you what it is, what it assesses, the population that they did it, the test format, the reliability, validity, results from the research that we read. So it gives you a nice little summary to help you maybe assess which one you might want to use. And the final section is like program assessment for, like, Stephanie, you may be interested in that, or you may be interested in some of these assessments. So I'll briefly share that. Okay. The other, if I can find where I hid this. Okay. So when we're talking about DEI work, like, why do I even care about that now? I think we all should care about that now, because actually, if you're up on what's happening with ABET, just under a year ago, ABET came out with these motions where they are making modifications to the criterion. So here I'll look at criterion 5, a professional education component that's consistent with institution's mission and program educational objectives that and promotes diversity, equity, and inclusion awareness for career success. So this means educating your faculty, right? And the one that's specific to, I'm sorry, that's for our students, sorry, educating our students. And then we also need to criterion 6 faculty. The program faculty must demonstrate awareness and abilities appropriate to providing an equitable and inclusive environment for its students and knowledge of appropriate institutional policies on diversity, equity, and inclusion. So ABET is very aware of what is happening. Are you able to see this on the screen? Okay, great. I can't see the green box of what it's showing you right now. So I feel that those are really important things that we need to be aware of. And so where do I start? Well, this is one document that I found. It's from Stanford University Bioengineering, and let me make this bigger. So if you want to look at your course and evaluate, like, how am I doing? Am I doing a good job on diversity, equity, and inclusion? I love this rubric. So you can sit down and look at your course and say, all right, how do I do with making personal connections and relevance to my students, right? So does the content, what I'm teaching, is it really relevant to the students that I'm working with, right? Are we culturally aware of them? Adaptability of content. Do we create space and opportunities to tailor content to the interests and concerns of the cohort? So again, looking at the specific students that you have, and have I adapted the examples that I use and so on to represent my student population and their culture. Transparency of content, communicates decisions and expectations around the content. How is content chosen? How it connects together? How much are students supposed to know and why? You know, I think that's the piece, is the why. Why do you need to know this? Because students, the students I have, at least, a lot of them are querying that. You know, they're not just accepting, you know, you need to know this. They want to know why. So telling them up front. Diversity of perspectives. And I guess I can put together diversity of media with this. So when you look at what sources you're having students look at, what examples you're giving them, but even the names that you use in your examples, are they diverse names, right? Or are they all representative of, you know, European white folks, or are they representative of other cultures and so on? So those pieces all give cues to our student population about whether we're even thinking about them, right? And you may only have one diverse student in a section of class, but to make them feel like they belong, these little things make a difference to them, right? And I understand there are specific little activities that you can do for, you know, especially for the case where you have one diverse student, you know, they're going to be dealing with the stereotype threat. Even if you do these welcoming things, sometimes they still feel like, you know, there is that stereotype that maybe I won't do as well in this class. So it's really good to say up front that, all right, we have data, and you can find the publications on this. We have data that shows that all students perform equally, no matter your ethnicity, race, gender, identity, whatever, everybody performs the same on this. And they have shown with this that like in math, where women typically aren't expected to perform as well. If you say that to your kids up front, the women do even better than the male students. The female students do better. Just that little change, right? Such a small thing to do. Okay, diversity of media, so different perspectives of the names and images and so on that you put in there. Reflection of discipline, right? And do you feel like, do you do things to advance diversity, equity, inclusion in the field? Is it a core goal of your course? Is it a learning objective, right? And, according to the upcoming changes in ABEC criteria, we need to add these as learning objectives. And I know Todd didn't mention, but I have a new role starting this year. I am the Assistant Dean of Teaching and Learning in the College of Engineering, and I am tasked in the college to run a community of practice where I am educating my faculty on how to do these things. And the outcome of this community of practice is that they are going to implement at least one of these learning objectives into a core engineering course. So I'm getting faculty in every single department across different levels, different years of the curriculum, so that students, you're not just going to hear it in your first year class. You want them to hear it again and again and again, right? And you want your faculty to be comfortable with this. And so this is a total aside, but one of the things that, I'll be doing with my faculty is having our experts in the university, not me, coach our faculty on how to deal with microaggressions, how to handle difficult conversations. And because when you bring up some of these topics, it may ruffle the feathers of some of our students. They may not agree with what we have to say. And you need to be able to handle that in an appropriate manner. So those are things to consider. So anyway, ownership of community policies is an important thing. So how much autonomy do you give students in choosing what assessment they do, what assignments they do? Because not all students learn the same way, right? And so one of the best practices really is, under a specific category of learning objective, give students options of different types of problems. So maybe they would rather write about this. Maybe they want to just work problems. Maybe they want to do a little research on their own. So give them a little autonomy in this. And when you empower your students with that autonomy, you're going to see that they have learned the content, but maybe they're not able to show it in the same way as another student. And I know this does, to make your course happen this way takes a lot more work, but it is better for the students. So this goes on to course norms, structure for peer interactions. How do you value diverse groups, diverse students in your class? Do you model patience, compassion, awareness of these things? Do you give your students grace, especially now in these times? One card that I read, they use what they call, oh gosh, now I'm forgetting the name of it, but essentially it's like you get 2 get out of jail free passes over this term, and you can use it on any assignment that you want to turn in a week late or whatever, but you get 2 of these, I think I'm going to start implementing that in my courses. I love that, so, kids get sick, things happen, whatever, somebody in the family is ill. They can have excused, or it may just be that they need a mental health day, right? And that gives them that opportunity. So anyway, I can share this rubric. There's a lot of things in here. Language, tone, framing, who you are in front of the classroom, right? Do you make yourself vulnerable to the students? Do you let the students know a little bit about you personally, right? That's important. And this goes on. Are you available? Do you make expectations up front so students understand, what you are expecting them to learn? Do you have your learning objectives in your syllabus? Openness for conversation. The assessments. So I guess I jumped the gun talking about assessments, but are the assessments really appropriate to the learning objective? And you give students a little bit of autonomy in choosing their assignment and how it's assessed. I've read some research on where some faculty are actually like allowing their students to create the rubrics. It's an idea. Do you share your rubrics clearly in advance? You have diversity of assessments, student choice, and here's diversity of assessment, student choice in assignments. Do you have a lot of low stakes assessments and maybe like drop the lowest grade type policy? The low stakes assessments and diversity of assessments and choice in assignments, these things together also help reducing academic misconduct. So these practices are a win-win for working with your diverse students. It enhances learning and it reduces academic misconduct. So these are great practices to follow. And then it goes in some of the policies maybe you don't have control over, but just things to think about. Enrollment, open enrollment, cost, accessibility of materials, right? Accommodations, feedback mechanisms, and so on. So they've got a lot of references here with this, but hopefully Todd can share this resource, put it in the forum, all these things, because I love this. I think it's really great. Okay, and I've been talking a lot. Do you have questions about this? Thoughts? I'd love to hear your feedback, what you think about this.
I think it's really interesting to see all of these different categories and sort of think about what are the easy to achieve pieces of this, what are more of the structural pieces that might require more policy changes or administrative changes and support. Because I think some of this is just how the faculty member chooses to interact with the students. Some of it is more campus climate, some of it is more content related. So I think when we talk about DEI, everyone always says, but I don't understand how it applies to my math course or to my physics course. And I think these are really good examples to say, but you can still create an inclusive environment without having to make sure that every problem that you use is based on a social situation highlighting equities or inequities, right? It can be different.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's great. Terrific. Thank you for that. So I promised cards, right? And of course my Zoom bar is right over my tabs on cards. So actually I kind of want to start here with these ethical ones because even though they don't state in here, the examples that they use. So I know in first year, everyone's, or somewhere along the way, you're going to teach ethics, right? And it actually is just subtle changes to include DEI work with your ethics work. right? Depending on what type of examples or case studies you give them, right? It seems like, we always had the standard, the Challenger space shuttle. But okay, if we change them and some of these questions here, I love this AI bias. These systems are vulnerable to biases and errors introduced by human makers. And what this faculty member presents in this module is that it was a really small class. And I know all of us don't necessarily have a class of 9, but if you do have a small class, she assigned each of the students one of these topics to research on their own, and then had them present to the class, and the rest of the class had to ask questions and interact. But you could do it in teams, you could do a jigsaw, like assign different members of the team to a different one and bring it back to their team. There's a lot of different ways you could implement something like this. And you don't have to implement all of these. You could pick your favorite example, because I feel like AI bias really ties into DEI too. Because when you think about, I know there's some great videos out there about these sensors, automatic sensors for doors and for hand washing. Many of them were created at first such that they didn't recognize they didn't work for dark skin, right? They only worked on white skin. And so there's some funny videos of the solution at one company was to have their one employee of color followed around by a white person to activate everything for him. That's a DEI issue, big time. So a lot of these, I think, fall under that category. And empathy is also important. And when you think about the EML aspect of things, empathy is a really important piece of it, because when you're thinking about your customer and your customer user needs, which is where we should be beginning with our design projects with students, they need to develop some empathy to be able to relate to their customer, so that they're designing for what the customer's need is, not what they think the customer wants, right? So I really appreciate that in there. Another one that I like is this virtue. And actually, it's a great exercise to do virtue and values. I would call them kind of values, really, more than virtue. But they've shown that if you want to help minimize stereotype threat in your diverse students and your female students, to have your students at the beginning of the semester write down their values and just affirm their individual values. There's research out there that shows that piece alone makes a big difference in the students. And then you can check in with them at the end of the semester and see, like, so do you feel like you lived up to your values, to the expectations of your values? Yeah, just one small change. And again, this card uses reflections. So if you're not teaching a class where you've got huge time to do the in-depth work that the previous card did, this one uses journal reflections. Or you could do it as a discussion board, which could be really interesting, to do a discussion board and see what all the students, say based off what other students have to say. It could be really fun to just open their eyes about these different, essentially these topics all have kind of a little DEI aspect to them. Any questions? Like, feel free to chime in anytime if you want to stop me. So this I wanted to introduce, if you're not familiar, I'm sure Stephanie knows about card decks. But so the Comcats, the community catalyst, and other folks have kind of gone through and evaluated cards for alignment with a specific topic, and then also looked at, you know, the strength of the card and put together these decks. And so this one is not specifically a card deck, but it's got a number of links in here to a card deck, which is the next card oh no, I don't have that one. A card deck of diversity, inclusion, and EM. And it's interesting card, actually. We can look at that. Oh, this one, that link is broken. Okay, we need to let them know that link is broken. But I could search for diversity, inclusion, and EM. It may actually be a link in this one. Nope. So they've got activities, literature, and resources. Okay. Oh, here's the pink time. Skip class is another option besides the two like get out of jail free cards for assignments. They do pink time. Numerical methods with hidden figures. Taylor series. So we talk about math, right? The Margaret Hamilton problem solving studio. And so on. So there's, this is one card I already discussed. Got some great resources in here to look at. And don't be afraid to just use a piece or adapt a piece of a card, right? If you see just one thing that calls out to you, just use it, grab it, pull it, and use that, right? So, but this has got actually links to activities. Get this up. Does it keep going to the same link? It is. I think. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm my bad here. Okay. So activities that you can do. And even for a virtual environment, virtual introductions, right? Encouraging collaboration and competition, highlighting diverse STEM figures, safe spaces for failure, and supporting student autonomy. As I've mentioned, it's a really important thing to give your students more autonomy. It helps with motivation and learning and so on. So good practice all around. And this has got links to some great resources. It's got pink time. Okay. Flexibility and submission. Oh, you got to download. Okay. This is the robotics ethical consideration. Literature. So assessment and outcomes, labor-based grading, and so on. And then the other resources. So questions. I really love to open it up for a little discussion and questions. Anything more you'd like me to talk about or ideas? I know that's a lot. Sorry. It was just like, oh.
So one of the things that I was supposed to do this semester was look at DEI within like one of our departments. And I started with like a syllabus just to see how are they providing like the learning objectives and what kind of language do they have in there. And so I have to like write a report now about this, which is interesting. But now I have this rubric, so that might help me like find some ways to really like nail it down into the perspectives that they need to kind of improve upon, especially in their syllabi, I guess. So that was really useful to have. So I'll have to take a deeper dive into what that is and see if I can use it to give my colleagues some feedback on ways that they can improve and things that they're already doing well at. So, that little feedback sandwich type of thing.
Oh, yeah,
So that'd be good.
absolutely. Great. Oh, good. I'm glad that was helpful. It's been helpful to me. That's why I thought, yeah, I got to share this.
Yeah,
Well, I like the ethics questions that you had, the new ethics questions, because we always talk about the Challenger and bridges and everything else, and those questions are much more current. I think that would be a really good, as you said, maybe a discussion / reflection assignment for the students to post their ideas and have other students comment on them. It would require them to do a little bit more within the Blackboard / Canvas classroom, but doing it in that manner alleviates the hesitation to enter in class, which is always a problem. So I think that a discussion forum for those new ethics questions would be something I wrote down, and I took a screen capture to add that for next year. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Great. Todd, you were going to say something before?
Yeah, I don't know what that noise was. I don't know where that came from. But anyways,
my stomach growling.
that was me. So I am really fascinated by the rubric. I hadn't come across it before. And in terms of its flexibility or applicability, I'm not working in academia. I work in the corporate realm, but I do community building. And just as a thought experiment, I started going through and replacing everything that I saw as course with community and everything I saw with student as member. And it's pretty broadly applicable and I think, even if you're looking at sort of a learning, like a remote learning community or any kind of online learning situation or a community of practice even, this is a really great framework. I think it's a good reminder to look at all the different elements of the platform and the experience and what people are meant to learn and the levels of transparency and where content is coming from. It's really powerful from what I'm looking at here.
Right, great. Oh, that's great. Thank you for sharing that insight. That's really powerful. Because I know a number of our faculty work in building community experiences, going out into our communities, and that could be used to evaluate their programs, their programming. Mm-hmm.
I'm so glad this is Creative Commons because I'm going to adapt it and use it in my consultancy. So
yeah, just give them credit, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
So let me ask maybe a question. So obviously with ABET coming out, DEI is important. ASCE has a diversity recognition program. So there's a lot out there to encourage and incentivize structural and programmatic DEI integration across engineering coursework. And yet you look at this call and it's for females. And I have seen work that actually says, and I don't have the study up exactly, but they essentially said that female faculty were more likely to be the ones talking about ethics and talking about diversity. So are there things we could or should be doing so that this becomes a topic that not only is everyone supposed to care about, but that everyone actually fully buys into and is willing to make the modifications for some level of integration, whether it's with the climate, whether it's with the syllabi, whether it's with the content, right? Everyone should be able to do something, but yet it does still seem that we're not there where everyone is doing something. Any thoughts on that?
I do have some, because I can share with you what we're doing at Ohio State. So this community practice that I mentioned, we ultimately hope to have all of our faculty across all ranks, tenure track, the clinical or professors of practice and lecturers to go through this. And to show the importance of it, our college is putting up $1,000 support for each faculty member and the department is contributing $1,000 support. So the faculty member, for the additional time to go through the community practice and make these changes, will get support of $2,000. I know in the grand scheme of things, it's not huge for their time, but it's something, you know, it acknowledges. The other thing, structurally, we have added a new criteria in our annual reviews, and that is, what have you done to support your DEI initiatives in your work? And so it's going to impact raises, right? Your annual raise, if you haven't done anything. Short of that, you know, you're going to go, when ABET does make the change for coursework, you've got to have learning outcomes that you assess that relate to this to fulfill ABET criteria. So structurally, that has to come. Granted, it's a little bit later down the pipeline. You know, I don't know what their timeline is to roll these out, but you should be prepared, right? And have your faculty understand that they've got to, if you're going to assess them, that means you've got to have integrated them into your program and have rubrics or something that actually assesses them, assignments and assessment. So off the top of my head, that's all I can think of. I hope that's helpful.
It is. I guess I do wonder, I know you're saying your goal is to get all ranks through your community of practice. Have you done your initial call for applicants for the first community of practice? And how does that demographic body represent or maybe not represent your full College of Engineering demographics?
Actually, my first call is out right now. The first community is going to run beginning in August. And after my first one, I'm going to do more than one in parallel. But just the first one, I'm just going to do one. So I'm going to have about just under 20 faculty in it, because some of our departments have like 2 groups in it, and you know, mechanical and aero are together. So that's 2 folks. And so far my applicants are a nice broad range across ranks and ethnicity and so on. So I'm excited about that. It's not full yet, so if anybody from OSU is listening, apply. Oh, and speaking of I want to share one more thing, because I don't know if you're aware of this, but do you know about, little plug, this is not my workshop, but Keene is sponsoring this Enhancing Diversity and Inclusion Through Entrepreneurial Minded Learning workshop in August in Denver, Colorado. And you know, it's, oh, I didn't see it's full. Oh shoot.
But that's so exciting, because by being full, it means hopefully they'll have positive reviews and they'll run it again next year. I think this is one of their new topics that they're offering.
It is, you're right. And the last time I looked at it, it was not full, so I apologize. But you're right, just to be aware of it, because they're running workshops sometimes more than one time a year, some of them. So if there's a lot of demand, which maybe this did, they might run it again like in December or January. Yeah. So.
Just out of curiosity, what does your community of practice like entail?
Oh, I'm going to be meeting with the faculty twice a month, beginning in August throughout December. I think I'll only end up being once in December because the holidays and so on. And I am going to be bringing programming to them about all these different aspects. I mean, bringing in speakers to talk to them about first looking at yourself and recognizing whatever your privilege is, you know, wherever you are, you got some privilege that you're bringing in the classroom. And, you know, maybe it's just your education, you know, you're a PhD or master's or whatever. So looking at that aspect, thinking about, you know, bias and looking at just looking inward first, and then start understanding more about your students and what can you do to help make your course more accessible for everybody, right? Because that's essentially what you're doing. When you think about DEI issues, you're making your course accessible to everybody. And improving learning, you know, for everybody, right? Not just your DEI students, your diverse students, you're improving learning for everybody. I think I mentioned earlier that I am going to bring in one of our experts to talk to our faculty about how to handle these difficult conversations. How do you reckon what are microaggressions and how do you stop them? Because as I said, I think those are important practices that the faculty need to be confident in being able to handle when you bring these types of topics into your classroom. Yeah, I mean, I can share with you if you're really interested, Katie, my skeleton syllabus right now, but I'm going to spend the summer building it all out. I've amassed lots of resources, but I'm going to create a whole course with this.
Well,
Was this so?
we have one at Rowan, like it's a 7-module program that
Okay.
I forget the department, but like social justice department
Mhm.
actually runs for the whole university, but not specifically just for like engineering or whatever.
Right.
And I took that, and that was really like useful, I think,
Oh,
to see some of the stuff that I was like, oh, I might have done that wrong, or, you know, just like making myself aware of things that even I do that are wrong. Like, even though I'm trying to be as open and, you know, with my environment, but
and that's
I'm even doing
okay.
those things wrong.
That's okay. The thing is just, you know, if you recognize it in the moment or the next class or whatever, just bring it back up and share with your students that, you know, maybe what I said wasn't really appropriate and I apologize, but, you know, feel free to speak up and let me know if I have done something that offends anyone. You know, I'm open to hearing your voice. You know, even just doing that matters. Yeah, so that's awesome.
Was your community of practice a 1 semester or 1 year commitment?
It's a 1-year commitment. So after the semester of all the like throwing stuff in their head, then I'm going to work with them to actually help them modify their curriculum to add the learning objective, right? And then one of the final steps is to have observation of implementation of their new curriculum, and then sharing of those resources. So I'm going to be creating like a database and a repository of these different modules that faculty are creating to share out with all the faculty in the college. So now that was a great question. Yeah.
I definitely took some notes now to go find the money to do this on our campus.
Right. Well, you might want to talk to Katie too to find out what their group is doing, because it sounds like
We
it was
didn't get paid.
Oh.
It was completely voluntary. So it's whoever
It was
wants
a
to
very good, I mean, I also took it. It was a very good, it was 14 hours. I mean, over the course of 7 weeks, and very interactive and engaging, and here's the topic and now let's talk about it in breakout rooms. You know, they had Zoom breakout rooms to talk about a topic and then come back in and discuss it. So I learned a lot and appreciated that I have to be very careful about the things that I say and also recognize how inclusive I need to be. So I definitely would have recommended that to anybody. Katie originally took it, I guess, last spring, and then I took it over the fall. So it was good.
Awesome. Yeah, if
And
you're willing to
they actually
share.
have a second like level of DEI, which is inclusive pedagogy. So it's like,
Mhm.
if you get through the first 7 sessions, they have the next level, and you can take that as well, which I haven't taken yet, but it's an interesting thing. And
That's
I think it was
great.
full when I went to look for it last fall.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's, you know, I forget how, there were like 40 or 50 people each session from throughout the university. So it was a lot of people joining in, and it was virtual. So that helped, I think,
Yeah.
as well. So
That's great. That's awesome.
I can definitely
Yeah.
share with you what the different modules were.
Yeah, I'd
I
appreciate
can
that.
definitely, yeah,
Thank
for
you.
sure.
Yeah. And we should be respectful of your time. We're getting,
I think we're getting a little close here to the hour mark, and really terrific conversation and rich resources that you've shared with us, Deb. Thank you so much
you're
for
welcome.
sharing your time and your wisdom with us today. As I said, we'll get this edited and put up into the community as a resource, as a forum. And again, thank you everybody for coming today. And there's no reason to stop the conversation. We can keep the conversation going in the forums. If there's some additional things we'd like to continue sharing resources on and links. I know I saw some links show up in the chat there. It'd be great to see you guys out there as well.
Deb, before you go, can you share the link for the card that was talking about those ethical questions? As I said, I took a screen capture, but I'd love to have access to the actual
Absolutely.
card.
And it just dawned on me that thank you, Katie, for putting that link in, because then I remembered, wait, I could drop that file with the rubric to you right here. Yeah. Just give me a second to navigate there. And we probably don't need to record this.
Yeah, I'm going to drop this section here. Here we go.
Thanks for